So I want to dive into the next one, okay, which we call voice or knowledge flow. Do I relate to people in a way that I respect and want to know what they think? Okay? So the way we think of this from a 30,000-foot view is we're trying to tap the corporate mind. Okay? I think that all of our ideas together would be better than just mine as a leader. Therefore, I facilitate a dialogue. I create a safe environment where that can take place. And do you know how rare that is? It is super rare. I mean, everywhere we go, we always kind of run up to this last one here. This is where most organizations score the worst. Because everybody thinks they've got this inspiring identity, even though it's just something on the wall and some values written somewhere. Even though, most of the people can't recite them to us when we ask, what are the values of your organization, right? But we have them. And if you've got some connection happening, it's because you have a leader who's good relationally, right? And it kind of spills over into everybody. And that's a good thing. But take that leader, as Mike just said, take that leader out of the equation. You better replace it with somebody who's also, can relate well, or else we can just show you how the performance is going to go down. Task excellence and relationship excellence. So here's the definition of knowledge flow. When you intentionally seek the ideas of others. Okay. And again, this is extraordinarily rare. Okay. So rather than, it's really not going well, and so we have to sit down and have a confrontational meeting with you because you're not listening, and intervention time. Rather than that, creating an environment where I assume that I don't have the best ideas, and I assume I always need help. I assume I'm always in process, and I need help. That's me. Is that you? Some of you are looking at me like, how did he get up there to speak then? Why is it, didn't he have it all together? I'm one messed up dude. Are you? I'm a long way from being done. I hope. My wife really hopes. But, let me tell you about a story. About 11 years ago, I came to my wife. I've been married now 20 years. We've got 4 amazing kids. I'll tell you about them. I'll probably show you pictures later if I get into it. Okay? And I was in a really good space. I was in a really good spot. So I'm going to preface everything with that because I know this is rare. Okay? And I came to her and I said, honey, if there were 3 things about me you could change, what would they be? Like I'm naked, I'm unashamed, I'm vulnerable, And I'm thinking to myself, she's going to want to think on that. Because she's going to want to really make these count, And she just starts speaking. Like it just came, like it was right there to read off a list or something, And I don't know, she was on like 15 or 16, and I just, I was like, there's toilet seats involved and all this stuff. I'm like, okay, hold on. Let's go back to number 1 here, sweetheart. I love you. Okay. And she's like, you asked. I'm like, I did. That was my deal. And number 1 was learn to have fun. And again, it was with a rapid succession of others. But I said, so what you're saying is you're not having any fun. She goes, that's not what I said. Me and my girlfriends have a blast. We just don't have any fun with you. It's like, twist it, right? What are you saying? No, I get it. You're Mr. Mentor guy and Mr. Speaker guy, and you're really intense, and, I got it. Being a linebacker didn't exactly train me for emotional intelligence. You're with me, right? Okay. I think it's why I work with a lot of returning Special Forces guys. Anyway, okay, and that's serious stuff. And so she's like, well, you just, and hey, I love you. You invited it in. You asked. I said, I did ask. And anyway, so I've been on this crusade to be the fun guy. So I'm kind of hoping I'm the fun guy with you guys today. Okay, so I'll measure it as we go here. But the stuff we're talking about is still serious business, isn't it? You're leaders. And what you do matters. You will reproduce who you are as a leader. Proven. Okay? You have authority. Within the concept of authority is the concept of author. However closely somebody is aligning with your authority in their life, you are authoring. Your life is being reproduced into theirs. Does that make sense to you? Okay? Just think it through a little bit. Who are the big authority inputs that have made you the person you are today? Parents. What else? Teachers, bosses, coaches. You had some, boom, it came right to mind, right? That, you'll know the people I'm talking about because it's the people you respect. And you say, I kind of want to be like them, right? In certain areas. Not all, probably, but I like this aspect of this person and this aspect of that, right? I'm kind of hoping that that's had an impact on you. You do understand, of course, that the things about you, and maybe I'm talking about people in the other room again. They always send me into these rooms where I'm talking about other people. I don't know. Okay. The parts of you that are more challenging to deal with in life. Let's put it that way, You've also learned. And some of you've reinforced quite well. Okay? And because most of us live outside of real accountability, to be honest, right? We don't grow or change. The greatest leaders that we've studied, Mike's probably already mentioned this, the greatest leaders in the world, to a person, all used as they rose, they wanted more accountability over their lives, not less. Just think about that for a minute. They understood that this is a position of stewardship, right? Leadership is stewardship. What I do matters, and lives are at stake here, and things, right? Maybe you're going, dude, I do insurance, and lives are at stake here. Does he understand what I'm doing? Well, yes and no. You spend the bulk of your waking life facilitating environments that either, as Mike pointed out, lead to life or death, relationally. Does that make sense to you? You learn these habits of relationships or not. No, it's about task, leave me alone, disconnect, I'm solo, you're solo, Or we build a culture that actually thinks that's a good thing, right? With knowledge flow, it's so important that you do this. I'm an open book. I want your input. Okay? You've got to seek it. Okay? Then you've got to be willing, when it's sought, to share your ideas honestly. Okay? And again, this is unfortunately very rare. Most people don't feel very safe around others. Don't know what they'd do if I really told you what I thought. And therefore we hold back. It's kind of like saying the final 10% that you really want to say. Right? I like this and I like that. I said, but if you really wanted to know, the way you're doing it or the way you said it was just wrong. You need to go apologize. Or, well, they need to get tough and they need to, yeah, not so much. You need to stop, creating havoc around here. Right? Don't you want to say that sometimes to your bosses? Oh, I'm sorry. Some of you are the bosses, aren't you? Who's got the right to speak to you? Given what I'm about to tell you, it should be everybody in your organization. Okay? You should lead from the bottom up, in my opinion. That is the best possible way to get the maximum out of the people that you lead. That will engage them the most. Proven. Hopefully Mike made his case pretty strong this morning, right? Okay? And then finally, to do this in a way, and this is of course where it also goes off the rails. Hey, he said that I should seek it. I'm going to just tell you what I think. Well, you got to do it in a way that safeguards the relational connection. You can't just go around dropping nukes on people. Okay? You got to be respectful. You've got to be solution-oriented. No personal attacks. Okay? Well, to be honest, the problem's you. I think if you would just leave, we'd be much, whoa. Right? Because sometimes what you say, that's what people hear, isn't it? And do you know what we're finding out, again, statistically, is leaders especially, but people in general, have thinner and thinner skin these days. Okay? Because if you're acting like a human doing, when you are what you do, when you don't, you aren't. So to criticize what I'm doing means you're criticizing me. It's very personal. Or that, no. I'm a human being outside of what I do too. You knew that, right? I've got relationships and I'm loved and I've got friends. I'm connected. And as a leader, I know that I need to be ready to take lots of input. So I've got thick skin. Criticize all you want. I want the best ideas and the best solutions rather than I need you to think of me in this way. And I need to, no. Who's leading who now? Do you understand the difference? Because you're looking at me like you don't really get it yet. Say, I understand. You don't. Some of you don't. All right, so let's keep going. The front table got it. Okay? The idea is, are you able to facilitate a relational environment where you are not perfect? Good. Welcome to the rest of your life. Right? When I got married, my dad said to me two things. He said, welcome to the rest of your life, and then he smiled, this weird smile, which I didn't really understand what he meant. And now I do, of course, in a great way, of course, And then he said, you've got a decision to make. Do you want to be right or do you want to be in relationship? You choose. I go, what? He goes, you'll understand. And not that being right isn't important, but what happens when you come to loggerheads? Is the relationship more important than I am right and my will be done and kind of my way or the highway stuff? You know what I'm saying? And some of us in leadership, especially in companies, can get that way. And it undermines the long-term health of the relationships. Does this make sense? All right, let me get into some examples. And I know you like telling some of these stories, but I'm going to do it, okay? All right? So Intel, Andy Grove likes to talk about the idea of helpful Cassandras, right? Cassandra's the priestess that foretold the fall of Troy, right? So the idea of who are those people that even though most of us think that we're going in the right direction, but there's an unsettledness about them and they have to speak up, right? Well, they used to be in the memory business and they moved to the big shift into the microprocessor business. Basically because a couple of guys had a sense of what was going on in Japan and said there's no way we can compete in this market space. We're doing okay now, but we've got to get out of here or else we're going to get creamed. And here's what we see, and we do, because the idea was, well, it can't be good quality for those prices. And he's like, it really is. And again, the bulk of his leadership team was saying, I think we're just fine the way we are. I like the house I live in, and they weren't really thinking future. But he listened to him. Boom, huge shift, retooled the entire company. Isn't he glad he did? Intel's inside everything now, right? But if he didn't, he would have got creamed. And it's because he comes out of a culture, he was born in kind of a controlled country. And when he came over to America and he started going to school here, he couldn't believe the way that American students would talk back to their teachers. He literally, because we believe in the Socratic method here. Well, maybe some of you didn't come out of that, but where you can actually question authority, right? And he came out of, you're probably going to get shot. It was good to see you, kind of a vibe. And he saw the way that they generated the good ideas, and he said, I will always be the leader that wants that, what we're calling knowledge flow. He wouldn't have put it in those words, right? Becomes Times Man of the Year and all this other stuff because of the way he leads. Okay? He's a guy who facilitates great ideas. And you've got to have that to be a high-functioning organization. Back in World War II, after we did the landing in Normandy, which was a huge cost, as you know, right? We got stuck trying to really penetrate south because if you were to look at an aerial view of France, you'd see that all these hedgerows, everything's kind of organized into these hedgerows. And so when our tanks would go to take the land, they would kind of pop up going over the hedgerow. Do you understand? And so they'd show the underbelly of the tank, and the Germans knew this. They'd be right there. They'd take us out because that's the weakest part of a tank is right in the underbelly. And it really stalled us for like a month. And so good thing that we had people on the ground going, we could solve this. We've got some pretty big engines in those tanks. Why don't we go back to the beach and get all the shards of the metal that were sitting on the beach and weld them to the front of the tank, and I bet you that we could just blow right through those hedgerows. And it's exactly what ended up happening. Curtis Cullen was a guy who came up with the idea, and aren't we glad he did, because who knows how many lives would have been lost in us figuring out another way, okay, until you could get that dealt with. But it was because leadership was listening to any idea that would come through. And they said, try it, tested it, it worked. Boom, he ordered scores and scores of these things. The tank's retrofitted right now. It looks kind of like a rhino. You see, it's hard to see in this picture. These are the shards of metal coming right out the front of the tank. But that's what they created, the rhino tanks. It's because we were listening to the ideas of everybody in the organization. This is the kind of thing we would encourage you to do in your organization as well. Doesn't matter how big they are on your org chart, how high up they go. Listen to everybody. You never know where the big idea is going to come from. NASA, who's a client of ours, you guys are familiar with the Columbia Space Shuttle disaster, yes? Are you familiar with the documentation that's come out afterwards to prove that they knew what was wrong before it went up? But the knowledge didn't get up high enough to the decision maker, and they wanted to make their time frame, and they didn't make the change, and boom. That's a big miss, right? Happened twice. So, problem with knowledge flow going in there. Would you agree? Okay. And mainly it's because they created, and again, it depends on how large your organization is, but even in smaller organizations it can happen, where people were really acting in silos and they really weren't trusting each other and sharing now. It became a sense of knowledge got trapped. Does that make sense to you? Okay, and that was the knowledge they needed to avert something which was just catastrophic. Make sense to you? One of the other things, if you were to just put NASA on the grid right now that we've already given to you, inspiring identity, human value, knowledge flow. NASA used to be NASA, right? I mean, it's NASA. They'll figure it out, right? And that's one of the things they're really dealing with these days. Are we, this inspiring identity, which people used to, wanna dream about going to NASA. They've kind of lost their way a little bit on that. And it's because of things like this, where it just starts to move down. Now, great leadership can turn this around. Do you understand? You start dreaming big dreams again. You start going, we do have some of the best scientists in the world. Let's rethink it. Let's do that. But that's what it takes to kind of get the culture shifting again. Does that make sense? All right. A.G. Lafley, Procter & Gamble. He's a Canadian. Any Canadians? Canadians always have anything. Okay. Anyway. So great guy. P&G is just tanking. And, massive company. It's just losing millions and millions every quarter. They say, okay, out with this. In comes A.G. Lafley. He goes, let's go on a tour and start listening to our front lines. He says, home base kind of got us into this problem, so I like you guys, but I'm out of here. And he went around the country and he started having these kind of round table, meetings. And this was his big phrase, because he's, again, Canadian. He used to say, let's get the moose out of the closet. A lot of moose in Canada. Anyway, let's get the moose out of the closet and talk about it. We've got problems. Let's be real about it. We're losing this, and this is it. What are your ideas to change it? And he implemented the ideas that came from the field. Such a quick turnaround, not only in their approval of the leadership. Again, once the people feel engaged, they approve of the leadership, they start giving their better ideas, they start working harder. It turned around so much so that it led to them acquiring the Gillette Corporation. Okay, quickly. Okay, connection is a very powerful tool. Okay, you're not tapping the human resource. How many HR people in here? Okay, just one. Just one. Very sad. Very sad. The people. Isn't there another one? Come on. You got to raise your hand. You're an introvert? Are you more introverted? Is that what it is? Okay. All right. 3 benefits at least of knowledge flow. First, it increases connection and it fires people up. Okay? Proven. It helps decision makers make better decisions, just flat out. With more ideas on the table, I could find some better ideas. That just makes sense, right? And then finally, it increases creativity and innovation, because now we create an environment where they do care what I think, so I might start thinking. But if you prove to me you're really not going to care what I think anyway, I stop trying to solve the problem with you. I just do my job, and I get out. That's really what those 75% of people are saying. I'm just here for the paycheck. I'll do enough. I'm not going to go, give you my best, because I'm not inspired. I'm not engaged. But when we create that connection culture, that can happen. So, before I get to this, a little quick there, okay? A little too quick. Here we go. So, how is the knowledge flow in your organization? On a scale of 1 to 10, again, I just like doing this because it's fun for me. Maybe just fun for me, I don't care. Here we go. 10 being great. Why don't you raise your hand when I get to the number where you go, this is kind of where I'd put us. A safe place to share ideas. People care what I say. I feel like I have a voice. I'm considered. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Honesty is appreciated. 7, 8, 9, 10. Any 10s? Good. Okay. That was pretty good. I would have put that at a 7.5 of what I saw in this room. That's pretty good. Again, but most of you are in charge, right? It's fun to do that when they're here too, Okay. It's actually fun to do it when they're in the room and you're not. But I know I'm talking about the other guys again. I know it wouldn't be you guys. So just to kind of play this definition out and give you some tools to start really doing it well. The idea of seeking out the ideas of others. We like to kind of borrow the proverb which says, be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. So are you as a leader, just evaluate yourself here, am I quick to listen? Am I just always dictating direction? Okay, am I listening to what's going on as well? I mean, after you've given the orders, do you listen to how it's going or their feedback for it or whatever? Are you slow to speak? Because you want your words to be considered and you want them to have power to them. And you want, that's why some of the best leaders are introverts. Some of the more charismatic leaders are extroverts, but introverts think about what they're going to say, really get it honed, and then they say it, right? Guys like me, we kind of figure it out while we're speaking. I actually know what I'm saying, but yeah. Nobody thought that was fun. All right. And now the other concept that's important is the idea that your neurological pathways get set in your brain. If you did a little neuroscience stuff, he talked about how your pathways get set. We can actually watch that when change happens in somebody, you can actually see the pain of change because your neurological pathways rewire themselves. And that's painful. That's why you want to start good habits to begin with and reinforce those good habits the rest of your life. Because the more you do something, it goes from, like, if you just go with me on this image, from a dirt road to a paved road to a highway in your brain. It gets more and more reinforced the longer you follow through on a way of thinking, a way of behaving, a way of feeling. Does that make sense? Okay. So to change all that is painful, but it can change. That's the good news. It can very much change. But a lot of that change comes from seeking out, what do you think about me? When I was training for the 1996 Olympics, I was one of the strongest guys alive at that time. It's just a little bit of moss on the rock. Stop your judgment. Easy there with the judgment. All right. A little bit of moss on the rock. But anyway, and I was training in Providence at Brown's campus still, and I was getting so frustrated. I mean, I was a strong guy. I mean, I was if you care, squatting like 850, benching 550, something like that, running like a 460, some fun numbers. But I wasn't throwing any farther. And I was stalemated. I mean, for like a year or longer, I was stuck. And it was very frustrating to me. Well, I finally came to a point of desperation. And maybe some of you leaders here, as it relates to connection anyway, you might be at that same point of desperation in your own growth or whatever. Because you've been working hard. It's not like I didn't have the right intention. I worked out 5.5 hours a day for 6 days a week. And I was at this track meet where there was high school, college, and Olympic guys there. And I saw this coach coaching his son in the hammer throw. Do you know what the hammer throw, right? Okay, they mainly throw it in Rhode Island. It's a big shot put on the end of a 4-foot cord that kills people. So all those throwing implements are implements of war. Javelins, a spear, discus. You wouldn't want to see a discus thrown into a crowd. Right? Same thing with the hammer throw, okay? All right, that's kind of the idea, right? And I came up to, I'm being honest with you, I mean, I was at a point where I'm like, I need help. And I was one of the best tacticians in the world in the discus, still am. People still come to me, can you analyze this, whatever, okay? But here's what I learned. I am the perfectly wrong person to give myself advice. And so are you as a leader. I came up to this coach, his name was Coach Flynn. I said, Coach Flynn, do you know anything about the discus? He goes, no, not a thing. We throw hammer here, kid. I was so desperate, I said, it doesn't matter. Here's the deal. I will coach your son. He had a big, strapping son of a, it was great. Anyway, I will coach him in the discus. If you would be willing to come with me, watch videotape of the greatest throwers in the world that I'm trying to emulate their technique, and just come and watch me, and when I'm out there, just show me where I don't look like the tape. He goes, deal. I'll do that all day. And first practice, just, true to form, right? It doesn't look like the tape. Did my end of the bargain. I'm like, a little bit more specific, please, Anyway, and sure enough, he started to give me a sense of, you say you're trying to do that. I think you're leaning, really? I'm not a pro. I told you I wasn't, but you said, and again, in the beginning, it was like, I can't possibly. He's like, okay, you're the pro, but all right, I'll start listening. Within 2 weeks, I went up 20 feet, which is an enormous jump in the discus, which is usually won by feet or inches. And I was back in the top 7 in the world again. And, the power of a coach, another person's lenses looking at you, just cannot be understated. Will you let that kind of coaching, that kind of knowledge flow in? Will you invite in the feedback, the input? That's what takes you from good to great as a leader. So when you do this, will you share those ideas and opinions honestly, okay? One of the big things we deal with in the corporate world is people unwilling to speak truth to power. I don't know what the ramifications of me saying this are going to be. Therefore, I'm going to hold back a little bit. How many of you wrestle with that? Oh, he's right next to you, isn't he? Okay, just do one of these. Just do one of these. All right, I got you. Okay, all right. And the thing we want to encourage you is to never become a yes man or yes woman. Don't just go along with it, even though everything in you is saying this is wrong. This is a bad idea. We could do this better. Say it. A great leader will respect you for challenging something. Even if they don't end up going with it, you've got to say it. Okay? Having a voice doesn't mean having a vote. It means having your ideas truly considered. That's what it means. Leaders are still going to, make the decisions, and we're all going to deal with the consequences. You want to stand up for what you believe. You want to share your ideas honestly. All right, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you 5 minutes at your tables. I want you to brainstorm a list of ways that would allow ideas and opinions to be shared more honestly in your work environment. What things could you change as a leader or as a part of the team to do that? And then what boundaries would help make this process most efficient and effective? Because whenever you're going to get into a dialogue where you're actually getting ideas and thoughts and feelings, you got to put boundaries on it. Okay, like no personal attacks. We only want actionable ideas. Okay, especially in a group setting, no personal attacks. If you want to have an issue with somebody, it's better to go one-on-one. Does that make sense? Because it embarrasses them in front of people. So you got to be kind of wise about emotional intelligence here, right? Okay, 5 minutes, we'll call you back. Here's the thing right here. All right, let's bring it back together. Was that helpful? Some good stuff? All right, so I do it a little differently than Mike. I just make you tell me what you're saying. So give me something from this front table here. Some good actionable idea. Gached.
One of the things that we talked about was have focus groups.
Have focus groups, good.
At the hospital, we had focus groups with everybody from the environmental crews all the way
Excellent.
up. And it was amazing how many environmental people came up with some of the best ideas, most cost-effective, saving time, saving money, and so forth.
Excellent. Did you guys hear that?
We couldn't hear.
Okay, sorry, listen better. What do you want me to do? I can't project for no. Yeah, he said have focus groups where you get people together on a regular basis and brainstorm the problems, right? And what do you all think? And said some of the best ideas came from those groups. Very good, thank you. You guys, power table, front left, here we go. What do you got? What do we got?
Me.
Voted spokesman.
Well, you know what, we did come up with it. We didn't call it.
Nice and loud.
We didn't, excuse me, we didn't come up with focus groups, but it was actually, Gail brought up that we do have some formal ways of creating ideas, but to do it more informally and just have it more natural as part of open discussion,
Yeah.
as opposed to some of the formal things that we do, successfully have right now.
Do more of the informal side of it too, along with the formal structured times, just informally, ask, seek, that kind of thing. And that's powerful. Because, a lot of times companies go, okay, you've proven it to us, this is right, and then they go back and try and implement right away. And of course, they're employees are looking at them like, okay, he was at a seminar, weren't you? This will last for like 2 weeks, and then, they give you that look like, oh golly, what did he just learn? And is this another program? Or is this who you are? Which is what we're going to talk about next, which is the idea of character and how important it is. But good stuff. What about this table? Next table.
We're going to set up a confessional.
A confessional. There we go. You got the right guy. I came late, huh? All right, here we go. I'm ready. Go for it.
And to keep communication, we're skill-based communication, work on that, because some of it is not just managed up and down, which we're better than most at, but peer-to-peer,
Peer-to-peer.
there's sometimes more difficulty, which kind of tamps down the innovation.
So get the communication going peer-to-peer as well. Maybe we can all do similar tasks better by learning from each other. And like Mike said earlier, maybe one could teach the others how to do some skill that they all know, and that's good. Middle table. What do you got?
I think for our crew, a cross-functional representation is the key. If we were talking about an instance where the purchasing department had a bunch of ideas for continuous improvement,
Yeah.
and it wasn't until we brought quality and engineering into the discussion that it got better.
Nice. Love that. Love that. That's actually one of the ideas we're going to give you for doing it. Broaden your group of people that are talking about the same idea. A+ for that table. What do you guys got? A lot of pressure right now.
We talked about actually two different things. One afraid that their ideas were gonna get them in trouble or make them look stupid if they weren't great ideas.
Sure.
What they thought was a stupid idea, they didn't know, so they
Right.
wouldn't say anything. But also to try to create some kind of vehicle to give people some anonymity,
Yeah.
you know, a way for them to get ideas.
Suggestion box, something like that. Yeah.
Without, you know, texts or emails or that type of thing.
By the way, do you know why people make fun of one another? He's one of the toxic ones. Okay, steer clear of that, dude. I just have fun kicking your butt. Anyway, right. Well, mainly it's because, and there's multiple reasons, like some people are just mean, right? Usually because they don't feel affirmed themselves. Most people in America are starved for affirmation. Will somebody just recognize what I'm doing and appreciate it? Right? Like the human value piece. Appreciate their positive, unique contribution, right? It's good stuff. All right, next table. Don't think you're getting off. I'm watching you guys over here.
Actually, a few months ago, we set up 3 different work groups, a combination of staff and management, to address 3 specific things. One was incentives for employees, one was efficiencies and cost sharing, and one was like team building and culture. And it's been an interesting experience. I think what we were just discussing is that we probably should have put a little bit narrow boundaries on it, because the staff wasn't quite prepared to, you know, tackle things in the matter. So we should have started out with, you know, smaller and narrower boundaries and let them work out the stuff.
Yeah, that's good. It's wise. Yeah. And when you see the scope of all that needs to be attacked, right, it's wise to go, what are the 3 things we're going to work on in the next 3 months? We'll deal with these others. Lots of seasons coming, hopefully, if we continue on as an organization, right? But what are the most important, and just, yeah, bite-size it. That's good. All right, front table. I miss these guys. I don't want them to feel left out. It's inclusion. It's good. Yeah.
So we recently embarked upon an employee survey, which was a significant process for us, and so we got a lot of key learnings out of that. So instead of that being just a one-time process, you know, have that live on for a year and then report out on a regular basis to all employees the progress that we've made, even if it's small progress in different functional areas, so that people don't say, what was that for?
Right. Love it. That's really awesome. And especially if some of the metrics go down, let it out. Let them know. That's great. Okay, you guys, the pink crew.
Yes, in fact, with the pink crew.
Yes, sir.
There was a couple of themes that we were talking about. Certainly the first one was to get people to begin the processes. You know, we needed them to feel safe.
Yeah.
They needed to feel like they could offer this in an environment where, you know, there was no risk. And then there were 2 pieces to that. One, when we're in one-on-one meetings, really to do everything we can to make them feel like it's bottom-up, not top-down.
Yeah.
And it's really hard. There's position power, however much we want to get rid of that, doesn't always go away. And then some of the outcome of that was really frequently in a group environment, people feel more comfortable. I'm unclear why that always is, but to get the feedback any way we can, and not be afraid of looking for different opportunities for it.
Good. Good. Thanks for sharing. That's excellent. You guys and gals.
Our table was split into 2 groups, so.
Okay. So there's a sense of disconnection going on over there. Why don't you guys go on the whatever east side of the table?
We had several ideas. I mean, one of which was that meetings shouldn't be necessarily always led by team leader and dictating exactly what their agenda was and what they thought was best for them.
Right.
But really to take on the role of the facilitator and give out, you know, some of the concerns and problems you're trying to solve, give individuals a role in the meeting, and they're more likely to share honestly when they have a role. It was also mentioned that bring food to the meeting. I think it always goes better with the food. And then on the anonymity, it was mentioned that they use SurveyMonkey.
Oh, yeah.
And that allows the employees to share ideas and do it in an anonymous fashion.
Yeah, really great tool. Survey Monkeys, everybody know about it? Yep. Thanks. Now the West. The rest of you guys, basically. Yeah.
Well, I'll just say a few things, some of which we talked about here, some are picking up on some things that others spoke about. One is we have team meetings, interdepartmental meetings, that we used to have project meetings or the interdepartmentals would come together and talk about a project for an hour. Now we do it's a stand-up meeting and it only lasts 15 minutes. And you go around the room and everybody has a chance to talk about what are we going to do in the next 3 days on this project. And it's brought out a lot more ideas, I think because it's very short-term focused. And everybody knows it's not sitting down, it's going to be a while, so that's helped a lot. We do a company survey, we do it every 6
Interesting.
months, same questions for the last 3 years. And it benchmarks, and yes, when it goes down, you know, how confident do you feel about your future here in the company? And when it goes down, we talk about it at the
Yeah.
company meeting.
That's great.
In terms of smaller groups, we talked about maybe using communication starters topics that are make people think introspectively, but don't have any risk associated with the topic at hand, just to sort of break the ice.
Yeah.
And,
It's good. Icebreakers. Good. Good facilitator leadership kind of stuff. That's great. How many of you find it hard to be a facilitator? I mean, it's a skill, guys. It's I found that very hard when I first got out and I started leading, and I started leading not organizationally, but then I got I started a couple of churches and things like that, which are very hard to lead. By the way, in case you're wondering, be nice to your pastors or leaders, whatever. Anyway, or else I'm coming. But because you kind of you got a sense of where we need to go. Right, and especially if you don't mind me talking about the church world has got a lot of change it needs to do, okay? And so how do you get people who are stuck and this and that? Well, you've got to include them in the dialogue or else they're not going anywhere. Does that make sense? I had to learn that one the hard way, personally. So it's very important to learn the skill of facilitation so that people own it. You end up probably getting to the same place anyway, but it takes longer. And so that's worth it in the long run. Okay, back table. Go for it.
I had one of the things that appealed to me was I don't know why we don't have an email address at our company that's suggestions@tileamerica.com. It's just the modern day suggestion box, and it can come directly to me and only to me.
Great idea.
So that's a pretty easy one. And another, I've always found that management retreats are a great way to get that input back, and just having them make the agenda and topics they want to talk about, get them involved. I had a third thing, but I can't remember.
Okay. All right, last but not least. Last but not least. Oh, hold. Using the alcohol and other substances to free people up, their inhibitions on. Okay, back table to the right there. What do you got?
So we started with the draconian idea of no whining. And then we kind of moved into more of a, if you have an issue, you encourage people to bring a solution, along with that. Instead of just rolling out, complaining essentially.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one of the things we make as part of our boundaries. We want solution-oriented ideas, not complaints or looking backwards. Okay? All right, great. Good stuff, guys. Was that fun? All right, this is for you.
Excuse me. I know you didn't get anyone to catch you, but you just slammed your door into my car.
Yeah. So this is an example of what not to do, obviously, right? You're not going to facilitate a whole lot of good knowledge flow this way, right? That's just a fun break. It really has no meaning whatsoever. All right. So we want you to safeguard relational connections. We want you to relate in a way where the relationship matters to you. Okay, so you have to be intentional about this. Have you heard of the concept of relational bank accounts? Okay, no, I'm going to assume no, unless you're just really quiet. Okay, so the idea is, for example, I do a lot of one-on-one mentoring and life coaching of executives, things like that, right? So the idea is, when you get to know me, you get to know what's going on in me, it's really important that you affirm the good things I'm doing right before you tell me about the bad. Usually 7 attaboys for every 1 criticism. Does that make sense? Good ratio to keep in mind, by the way. 7 attaboys for every 1 criticism. It's kind of like you're building up trust in the relational bank account. And you can't do this in like one of my mentors used to call this saccharine. You can't do this in a fake sugar kind of way, right? It's got to be real stuff that you appreciate in the firm, okay? But that also kind of buys you a little bit of a drawdown too, doesn't it? Potential anyway. This thing sounds a lot louder. Did you jack up the volume or something? Anyway, all right, so am I scaring you now? Like, why is he yelling? He seems scary. Anyway, so this makes sense, yes? Now, when you do something which violates the relationship, okay, you do something mean. Again, I must be talking about those other people again. It's so important that you come back and apologize, especially as the leader. Does this sound basic? Does it feel basic? Then why don't you do it more? Do you know how many people come to me and go, if they would just admit how they messed up? We just want to move beyond it though, right? We just, okay. No, address it. Say we need to change it. Like, for example, a lot of companies are getting very interested in all that we're teaching these days. We're pretty busy right now, okay? And a lot of it is because the economy stinks, right? I'm sorry, are you here?
Yes.
Okay, got it. The economy stinks, and they're looking for the next competitive advantage, right? So what if we did build this connection? It will lead to greater profits. We've proved it, okay? Why weren't we doing it before?
Making so much money it didn't matter.
Yeah, for some folks, that was the answer. Okay? Now, for some folks, they still don't get this. Okay? It just seems weird. Can't we just get back to some, effective, efficient, let's do the metrics, and those are good things, as long as they're combined with relationship excellence. Okay? We're very pro task excellence too. But the reality is, okay, that most of us don't live in an environment where this is taking place in a healthy way. Most of us aren't doing the, hey, what do you think about this? In our relationships. Okay? And now you're starting to bring, you're going to come to the seminar, you're going to come back with the big change. What would I recommend you do? I've been at the helm of this thing for whatever. I'm assuming you're the leader now when I'm speaking. I want to apologize. I haven't been putting enough emphasis on the relationship side of what we've been doing. We need to change. That's on my watch. I apologize. Okay? Don't you think that conversation would go better if they, finally, we all knew it. They were the only one that didn't know it. You do understand they know this. They know it intuitively. You just woke up to the reality of it, that you're a jerk. Sometimes it's a great day, right? Hey, I'm a jerk. I got to stop being a jerk, No, I know you're not jerks. Again, I'm talking about those other folks. But, the idea is, how open are you in this, all right? And it'll build a lot of trust. The idea of mentoring, and we're going to get into that when we talk about the servant leader piece, but, who pours into you? Who do you give the right to criticize you? I'm hoping you've got lots of names coming to mind right now. Anybody, that'd be a great way to look at it. That's what I'm going to go for, okay? But again, unfortunately, what we're seeing is, and I'm talking about real accountability stuff, okay? Very few leaders actually have it. Very few leaders have it. So we like to say it like this. Complex problems are like mosaics. Everybody's got a little piece, a little tile in the overall mosaic. And if you want to really get great ideas, you've got to get all the ideas so that you can see the big picture together. Okay, because you never know what little kernel of good insight or good knowledge flow, that knowledge flow will produce anyway from the folks that are working with you. Does this make sense? You're already bought into this? Okay, here we go. So the ground rules that we would give, as I've already said, no personal attacks. You're quick to apologize when needed. Okay? Don't be proud. Don't be proud. And then give the benefit of the doubt. Okay? Especially as a leader. When somebody comes back and says, you know, you're right, when I did this, it was out of line, and, you know, okay. Don't do it again, but let's keep moving. You know? Be quick, you know, accept the apology without holding a grudge. How many of you hold grudges really well? That was a little vulnerable. That was a little intense. Yeah. Okay? You're trained to do it. Some of us are, right? We've got to, as leaders, we've got to be able to create an environment where people can mess up. Because if you don't, then they're never going to try anything. Make sense? Same for your kids. How many of you have kids? You know, your parents, right? Okay, you definitely want to create this environment for your kids. Most of America, and again, I just know this because I know things statistically, we're parented in a very unique way. Okay, so, and tell me how many relate to this, okay? So when I messed up, I was corrected, and boy, was I corrected in my house, okay? And it seemed as if when I didn't do what they wanted me to do or behave, that they're angry with me. And then when I got back in line, they was all happy again. How many of you can relate to that a little bit? Okay? It's very important when you're correcting people not to remove relationship. Now, they might not have tried to remove it, but it might have felt like they did. Okay? Like there was an intensity to the way they yelled at you. There was a, you don't have any rage problems in here, no intensity issues, right? And it feels disconnecting. It feels like I better change or else they won't like me. Right? Rather than being angry for you. Because when you're misbehaving, you're missing out on the right way to live and stuff. You know, for my son, I've got 2 sons and 2 daughters. You know, so I can parent them away in a way that makes them feel like they have to behave for me to want to be in relationship with them. And that doesn't work. Okay? It's a fear-based relational system. Does that make sense? Rather than I'm for you, I'm with you, I'm not going anywhere. You can't stop me from loving you. But you need to change this. Right? It's a real different environment when you create those 2 different environments. And you can do that as a leader. You might not say love. Maybe some of you will. I don't know. Okay? But the idea is, are you withdrawing relationship until they get their butt right? See what I'm saying? Do you feel the different dynamic? All right, I hope you do. All right, so the 3 S's to knowledge flow. Seek, share, and safeguard. Okay? Seek the ideas, share them honestly, and safeguard relational connections in the process. Do this gently, but do it.